there's a lot of times, and I see it in coaches my age, that it becomes the hunt instead of the ride, to where I'm hunting the next job, I'm hunting the next player that hopefully gets me to this, and if I do this, then it's going to be this. Versus, man, Kingsville has been great to me. I'm going to give it everything I have, and if it works out, it works out.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it.
Today we're joined by the head men's basketball coach at Texas A&M Kingsville, Omar Gonzalez. Coach Gonzalez took over as the 17th head men's basketball coach in Javelina history in the spring of 2023 after serving as an assistant coach for former head coach Johnny Estelle at Kingsville for the past 5 seasons. In that time, he led the Javelinas to 3 NCAA tournament appearances in 2020, 22, and 23. During his time in Kingsville, the Javelinas have posted 2 20-plus win seasons. In 2023, they qualified for the NCAA tournament for only the 8th time in program history. In total, Coach Gonzalez has also helped develop 17 All-LSC selections. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast.
Coach,
What's up, Coach?
how are we doing?
Oh, man, I'm good. How about you?
And I'm trying to find it every day, little by little. But I'm happy to be here, and I'm very honored to even be a part of this show, and especially with you.
Wow. Well, I appreciate that, man. The honor is mine. Thanks for giving up your time and coming on talking some hoops and culture. This is great.
I think it'll be good. When you first sent the email, kind of had to go do some research. I had to send it to the SID. Are you okay doing this? Being the first time in this seat, had to make sure all the P's and Q's. And then I saw you had a good friend of mine, Blue, on the show. And so I reached out to him, and he's like, man, that's awesome. Go do it. So
Oh, nice.
I watched that interview, and I don't have as cool posters as he had in the background and, all the history he had. My office is still in renovation. That's why I just chose the blurred out version, but I'm happy to be here.
No, that's awesome. Blue is one of the best guys. He's done so much for basketball, so much for players, and I really appreciate his friendship. So the fact that he gave this his stamp of approval, that's huge for me. Tell me a little bit about, taking over at a place where you've been an assistant coach and kind of in your first year as a head coach there. Tell me how that's been for you.
Man, I'll take you back a little further. I was just having a conversation with someone this weekend. I'm in the process of getting student assistants, and they always want to ask the pros and cons. So originally from El Paso, Texas. I was born and raised there. My first college job was under Coach Barbie at UTEP. And I was a student manager there. And I was one of 7 at the time. And so I was, the work for free guy. And this is the time when VCRs, and you had to carry the TV up the stands in the Don Haskins Center, which was no easy task. But it was a great time, and I loved it. And was there a second year, and then I left to the University of Houston. Well, James Dickey took over at the University of Houston. His brother, Randall Dickey, was an assistant at UTEP. So it was just by the grace that the overlap happened for me to be able to continue to work. So I was just going to Houston to get a degree in sports administration. It just so happened it was in my plans to stay involved in the sport. Finished there at the University of Houston. I needed to do an internship, and Coach Estelle was an assistant coach at the University of Houston at the time, and he got this job. And so I came and did an internship for him during the summer, and he offered me a grad assistant job in 2014 here at Kingsville. So I went 2014 to 2017, graduated. We were trying to help find a job here. It wasn't really working out. Didn't really want to leave, but wanted to keep pursuing opportunities. And I met Scott Schumacher, head coach at Blinn Junior College, at a couple clinics and TABC showcases. And his Blinn opened up a second assistant job, and it just so happened that I'd recently made a relationship with him. So I've just been very fortunate to be at the right place at the right time, and was under Coach Schumacher for 9 months. And the assistant coach, Mark Matthew, that was here at Kingsville, decided to switch and do a different career. And Coach Estelle called me back and said, "Hey, would you want to come back and be the assistant?" And, it wasn't so much that I didn't have a good time at Blinn. It was just this place was really special.
Yeah.
And the decision proved to be right, because 5 years later, Coach Estelle's now, one of the top assistants at North Texas. And I'm here, was able to be promoted and move up to be the head coach. So Texas A&M Kingsville has been very good to me.
Man, what a cool story. I love the fact that, how you started out as a student assistant and student manager, and kind of worked your way up. I would imagine that just gives you such an appreciation for your staff, all the little things that they do, where there may be somebody like I think of myself I started out right as a varsity assistant in high school. I never went through the junior high times and the JV times and doing multiple sports for the most part. And so I don't have that appreciation as much because I didn't go through it myself, but I'm sure you do.
I've joked at every step I've took up. I joke it, but it's the truth that you can take the man and promote him, but you can't take him out of his habits. And so, Coach Estelle, one of the first times, funny story is first time here as a GA, in Division II, grad assistants have way more responsibilities as a grad assistant than you would at a Division I.
Yeah.
Because the manpower is not as much. And so one of the first times Coach and I had a conversation, he looked at me and he goes, "Hey man, you're not a manager anymore. Like, you're a coach. You got to be doing this. You can't just be running around worried about the balls and worried about towels." And it was just in my habit. And as I move up forward, our assistants now, Coach Carlos Robinson, who's first time here, and Chauncey Thomas, who was a player for us, turned GA for us, and we're able to now make him an assistant. So he's kind of climbed the ladders here at Kingsville as well. And he looks at me all the time. He goes, "Coach, you're the head coach now, man. I got this. Let me take care of this." And I say, "Look, man, it's my roots."
Yeah.
And so I see film needs to be set up, and I help out, and I do this and I do that. And I sometimes have to stop myself a little bit to say, it's a pro and a con. It shows the hard work, but it's now my job to help guys like Chauncey, who are young and upcoming professionals, be like, "Hey, this is the route you have to do.
Yeah.
This is the work. You have to grind this, do that." And so I'm kind of the in between the big brother and the little brother at the same time.
I don't know if you feel this way, but there is a little bit of peace, I think, that comes from doing those habits or activities that we've done for a long time. Like, my thought is sweeping the floor. There's been times where we have a manager that's in second period athletics with us, and I have a former player who's helping out at the school that's also one of my varsity assistants now that's in there with me, which I've never had before, that many bodies. But I like to kind of get that mop out and get pushing it, and he'll be like, "Coach, let me do that." And it's great if he wants to do that, but then there's a part of me that's like, man, I kind of enjoy doing this. So I'm sure there's a little bit of a struggle for you of like, these are things I kind of like to do, but you need to delegate and you need to be passing some of those things on.
5 years of assistant, 8 years total of assistant, including GA. So my habits, it's not that it became redundant, but I've been doing it for so long at the same place. And we had our first football game this weekend. So I'm meeting with alumni and people who I haven't seen since I've been promoted over. And they've all asked me, what's the biggest difference? And, the 6 inches, when you move over, as everybody claims it to be, it feels like I'm at a new job at the same place. To where, the 8 years I was learning new things. Coach Estelle would give me the ropes here, take care of this now, take care of this now. And now that the ropes are in my hands, it feels, even though it's the same job that I've been doing for 8 years, it just feels like a new job. And so it comes with the territory of going back to the original conversation. That's my piece. So whenever things are going, I know how to do this. Let me take care of this while I start thinking about all the other stuff that so it just becomes kind of like the calm before the storm type of deal.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like there's so little in my control, but you know what? I can sweep that floor. I can make that floor look good. It's a pretty impressive climb in 8 years. Yeah,
Right.
you said 2014. You were a student assistant or a G.
It was my first year as a grad assistant.
Yeah,
I
grad
had just finished
assistant.
a student internship.
That's to be a head coach already. You said something early on, and that just jarred my memory. I wanted to go back to it, which is about the relationships that you're able to create along the way. And like, you're not where you are today by accident, and
Not at
because
all.
you just stumbled upon this place. Those relationships that you built as a GA, as an assistant, and at different places, have allowed you to be where you are today.
No, it's. I mean, it was one, through the grace of God, and two, through just like I said at the beginning. A name nobody will ever know is Louis Morrow, and Louis and I went to high school together. He was a manager at UTEP a year ahead of me, and he's the one who got me in the door. And so I'll forever be grateful for Louis for ever introducing me to get in the door of college basketball, because without him, I would have never started this process.
Isn't
And
that,
so,
yeah, it's so, sorry, go ahead.
no, and he'll never know it, but without him, I wouldn't be where I am today. And that's just, I think it's so important. You reach a milestone and you climb and you get to a point, but at the same time, if you remember who you are, the
Yeah.
climb doesn't seem as strong or as, man, I made it. It just becomes like a, wow, look how far I've come.
It's difficult to have an attitude of gratitude and complain at the same time. Like, almost impossible. Right. You're probably not complaining if you have that attitude, and vice versa. I think it'd be really cool for coaches to just take a moment wherever you are right now and think back to some of those small relationships like that were almost like the catalyst, like the reason. And I go back to my first coach I ever had in Pennsylvania when I was in 4th and 5th grade, created that relationship with him. He moved down here to Texas to the Colony, and going into my freshman year that summer, I came down to attend a basketball camp. He was working, met Tommy Thomas. He convinced me that I needed to move down here because everything's bigger in Texas and everything is greater. But that my dreams of playing college basketball could happen here. Flew back home, told my parents on the way from the airport back, and we decided to change our lives dramatically. But it's all because of that one relationship with that coach. I think when you think about those little moments, I mean, that span across like 25, 30 years now,
right?
That just so much gratitude to me comes from that.
Butterfly effect. No, I mean, you kind of trickle down to, this is how it started. This is what would have happened if, people always ask the, man, I wish, not to me, but just in general, people always have the conversation of, man, I wonder what if, and it's, sometimes people have to remember, well, why don't you just stay in the now? Let's focus on this, and let's see how far we can get with this, and look back 5 years from now and go, hey, look, it worked out.
Yeah, it's such a great point. And I was watching the other day, or just scrolling through, and as you're not supposed to do, just aimlessly scrolling through. But there's this old, The Lion King, the first one, and it's where Rafiki, I think is the name, swings, or he hits Simba over the head with the stick. And he's like, ow, that hurt. Why'd you do that? And he said, it doesn't matter. It's in the past. He's like, but it still hurts. Like, yes, it still can hurt. The past can hurt, but you can either dwell on that pain or learn from it. And he swings it again and he ducks. I just thought, man, there's like so many great coaching parallels with that little clip right there, or just in life where you're right. Like, there's things that my 20s were a mess, man. Like, there's things that I would love to do differently, but at the same time, as long as I learn from those and I'm not repeating those mistakes. I mean, you could take that on the floor too. Your player does a dumb thing. Hey, that's in the past. Get past it. Just don't repeat that action again. Learn from what you did. I don't know. I just think, thank you to Lion King for a great lesson right there.
Yeah, Walt Disney knew what he was doing a long time ago.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Ballogy. Manage and measure your players' skill development and increase accountability year-round utilizing the Ballogy app. Boost inter-squad competition with drills backed by the National High School Basketball Coaches Association, including a 40-shot Ballogy skills assessment. Please visit ballogy.com/teams for information on how you can provide this resource for your team. Well, you've been around some great coaches and already in your time, and I'd love to hear. I think this is a fun conversation to have with coaches of what they think are the main characteristics. Like, if you could choose three, what are the three characteristics of a great coach? I'd love to hear that from you.
Well, I think the first one is kind of what we were just talking about, is the who are you at the core, and there's a million ways to skin a cat. There's a million ways to coach basketball, to coach any sport, really. And if you were to align probably three coaches in one league, just to keep it a small sample, I guarantee you no three coaches the same of how they approach each day.
Yep.
But I think staying true to the core of who you are, no matter how you choose to do it, I think makes a coach good and special. Because anyone who tries to step out and go a different direction just to blend in or stay with the times, then it becomes hard, because I think the characteristic of a program starts with the man up front. And so, your culture and your core beliefs have to match who you bring in. The second part is who you have around you. I think it's very important to have people who have the same mentality and same approach, whichever the approach is, because again, it's their job is to help you organize and lead and build the success. And it would never work if the mindsets are going different directions. And the last part is the relationship. I think this sport and this generation of athletics needs a little bit more relationship than normal. I think, and I'm not too old myself, but I think there's a gap here between kids who need love and kids who need attention. And I think that difference right there is a fine line that a coach who can decipher it, and organize it and put it together, becomes a lot easier to do their job at a high level.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot. How do you know the difference between the two? Obviously, first it starts with you have to have a relationship with that person, right, or you're really just guessing at that point. But right, once you do have that relationship, what's a sign?
One thing, and this, I think Coach Estelle and Coach, I can name a lot of coaches who've taught me this, is you've got to coach everybody the same. And a guy shows up late who averages 12, 14 points for you and is your leading scorer, he's got to be coached as the same as the guy who just walked in the door 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And the more that you can kind of put everybody right there in the middle and make everybody feel like they're equal, you'll be able to decipher the ones who need the love and the ones who just seek the attention or need the attention. Because if you hold everybody to the same standard, it becomes a lot easier to tell. But if you tiptoe one guy and you absolutely blast one, and you never tell anybody this, then at that point, kids can tell. Transparency to me is the most important thing. And if you sit there and you tell a guy, look, man, I'm purposely being hard on you more than anybody else because I'm depending on you to do more. Be a leader, be vocal, be this, etc. But I'm just letting you know up front, I'm holding you to a higher standard. Can you accept that? And some kids will say, yes, they can, and they sometimes can't. And some kids will be like, Coach, no, I can't. So then at that point, you've already known, okay, he needs my love, because he's not going to accept the hard bearing, be the guy I need you to be, versus the guy who says yes and then still shows up late and he needs the attention. Mm-hmm. And so that's the fine line of difference, to where if you have the right relationship with the guys, you can be as honest as you can and see the results as they need to be.
I love that you asked that question of them, because I think so many times we coach them all, and coaching them all the same, we just assume that we can hold all of them to our standards. And I know outwardly it seems like, well, you should hold everybody to your standards. But at the same time, like, you got to ask them, is this something that you want? Because you're right. It's like truth or harmony. Right. I ask players, do you want truth or do you want harmony? Harmony is kumbaya. Everything's great. It's that Lego movie. Everything is awesome. We're just moving forward and pretending as if everything's okay. Or do you want the truth? And they will all say, yeah, Coach, we want the truth. I think most people want harmony. I think I want harmony. Like with my wife at home, I want harmony. Truth is difficult. But truth is what's necessary. But I think if you can get them to understand, like, literally, this is your choice. You get to choose whether I tell you the truth and I hold you these standards or not. But understand, if not, there are consequences that come with that as well. Consequences possibly in your role. How much leadership that you're given. It could translate to the floor as well. Because I think those guys that do want the truth, do want to be held to high standards, they'll receive that and they'll improve from it. And hopefully that translates, right?
And absolutely. And everybody has a why, right? Like everybody, and sometimes it goes back to the three, characteristics. The why of kid A may not be the why of kid B, but both whys have to be enough to make it work. And so as a coach, you got to decipher, well, this kid just wants to be on the team. This kid wants to make it past this point. This kid just wants to have a great college career.
Yeah.
And so it's up to us to be able to have the relationship with all three and be like, okay, how can we make it work? Well, one of those three is probably not going to make it. But you still have to coach them and hold them, because at the end of the day, you signed off on their lives being in your hands through the parents and recruiting in our world of saying, I'm going to help raise your kid into a young man by the time he leaves here with a degree. And, at your level, every level has a different, this is what you're holding for. In high school, you're trying to get to be college basketball players.
Yeah.
Well, in college, you may try to be a professional. And, lower levels, high majors, you're trying to make the draft, and you're trying to get drafted, or you're trying to play. Or NBA guys, you're trying to be a Hall of Fame player. You're trying to last in the league as long as you can. So, there's always a carrot that you can hold over someone and be like, look, if this is what you want to do, conversations I've had with a couple seniors, that I'm not coaching you. I'm coaching you for the senior year of you to be the standard of the bottom, because, they're the ones you're the one they look up to. But I'm also coaching you for, you can't work as a college senior and then expect to just be a pro at the next. There's got to be a keep improving.
Yeah.
And so it's just conversations that you have with them to just keep them involved. But again, I'm giving you tough love. I'm giving you real love. I'm giving you conversation. I'm not just, hey man, I need you to play Thursdays and Saturdays.
Yeah. And I wrote down attention or love. And I think obviously there are those times, maybe it comes back to a little bit of what their home life is like, how they were raised, that they might need one more or the other. But I think there's a lot of opportunities too, where you can really, it's both. Like the kid needs both, right. And the love part has to be there. Obviously, some kids don't need as much attention. Right. Like they're coach, I'm okay. You tell me what I got to do. I know who I am. I know my why, and I'm just going to work. I think maybe a difference maker, or what makes like from good to great in coaching, is knowing whether they need attention or love, but also times when we just got to bring both. So Coach Estelle, you worked for him for 5 years?
All 8. So him and I came together in 2014.
Okay. Worked with him for 8 years. So you saw him set the culture. Obviously, you're a part of it. But now as he transitions on and you move over those 6 inches, culture is something that's very important. I think a coach that doesn't think about it or talk about it now, I don't know. They just missed a lot of John Gordon stuff in the last decade, or Davos, whatever. Like it is important. I think my first question is the culture that was set, how much of that do you feel like you're going to continue forward? Or also you have your own ideas, your own direction you want to take it. How much are you changing or manipulating things?
One of the first things I said is that in order for a good coach to happen, both coaches got to be able to mesh together. And the reason why I was with Coach Estelle for so long is because he opened so many doors for me and trusted me, and him and I saw everything the same. So as far as the culture goes, it shouldn't drop off.
Right.
And it's not going to drop off. The standards are the same way. The expectations are the same, to where every person in the program matters. And that's, to me, is the foundation of our culture, is that from the manager to me, everyone in between not to say that they all have a voice, but they all have relevance to the program, and it's felt every day. And so that, I think, alone is the baseline standard that helps us keep growing from that. And so the culture that we're trying to have here is that you have a part of the reason why we do what we do. And, we say it in the recruiting pitch, if you're here on no money, if you're here on full ride, if you've been here 5 years, if you've been here 5 days, if you can make an impact every day, you have a chance to be successful here.
I love that idea of you have a part to play. Everybody has a part to play in our program. I think sometimes the message that is said or that people want to hear is that the program is here for us.
Right.
With everybody, this is all about me. And I think, man, a foreign message and one that is so important is just to remind our players and our coaches and ourselves that we're not that important. We are not the program, and it will continue on, and whether we're here or not. But I think that's a message that I love, the fact that you're kind of setting that line from the beginning, and knowing your background, it kind of makes sense.
No, I think the program comes first is what Coach would always say, and I think he's absolutely right, because if I were to disappear tomorrow, college basketball at Texas A&M Kingsville would still be played. And so it's
sorry to tell you, Coach, they get somebody in there. Yeah.
Right. So it's a matter of respect what you have. There's a lot of times, and I see it in coaches my age, that it becomes the hunt instead of the ride, to where I'm hunting the next job. I'm hunting the next player that hopefully gets me to this. And if I do this, then it's going to be this, versus, man, Kingsville has been great to me. I'm going to give it everything I have. And if it works out, it works out. Coach and I had never really talked about career change and profession and, moving up here and moving there. And the AD and I had never had conversation. Hey, if Coach leaves, but, I was doing my job at the right place at the right time, and it paid off. And, to say I'm the first Hispanic head coach here at Texas A&M Kingsville. And so to me, it's a reward at the end of the tunnel versus, man, I got to go search it and find it, because if you don't, then you're going to be left behind. It's just, it's the mentality of it, but that's the culture that you choose to set for yourself too.
Man, I thought of the Netflix, I think it's Netflix, about the Florida football team.
I haven't seen it yet, but I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard good things.
I mean, there's so many obviously great parts of Urban Meyer. I mean, as a coach, we're probably about as opposite as you get as far as what motivates players. And I mean, he went down I like to go down the courage route. He went down the fear route, and like, it's like good, the dark side and the light, like but there's another part of it that was so unique, is that what drove him to be successful allowed him to never be happy in the moment, to take things in. And this powerful moment and he was reflecting back on this, but they win the national championship. And before he walks in to see his players and celebrate, he gets on his phone and he is texting recruits. He's thinking about what's next. Like, how do we do this again? There's a danger in that, where we always as coaches talk about it's process. We're not outcome based. But really, like, deep down, are we
right?
Are we really where our feet are? And I think that it's good for us, kind of like we talked about at the beginning. Like, we can, there's mistakes we've made. Let's learn from those. It's even better if we can learn from others' mistakes. And I think your idea of, I'm just going to be faithful here, work my tail off here, make this place the big time, I think that's a good strategy.
And it's worked for me, and I think it works for others who do it. And sometimes it may not be the road to glory that some people, may compare at the end of the day, but I got to do what I love to do. I've moved up in positions, consistently through the process, so I know it works.
How do you feel like that culture drives performance?
It's something that you can't take lightly, and it's something that you can't, it requires a lot of work and a lot of attention, to where as a coach, and I just finished telling the guys this morning in conditioning, this is not a week to get comfortable because you've gone it through it 3 weeks. Now you're at the point where your body's starting to acclimate. Okay, I know what's coming. This is what we're going to do this. And the moment you start relaxing is the moment you get slapped. And so from our point as the coaches, it's our job to continue to raise the standard every day, to where if a guy was doing something in 12 seconds, now you got to do it in 10.
Yeah.
And really, we don't time anything in our program. So because you don't want to make your program incentive based, where if we do this in 5 seconds, then we don't have to do it anymore. Then the hard work becomes, well, are you really working, or are you just working towards a goal and then just being done?
That's good.
So the first day on the track, I said, okay, we're running a mile. They didn't really know what to expect. They said, okay, what time do we have to make? I said, run as fast as you can. If you want to be a 9-minute mile guy, I know you're a 9-minute mile guy. If you want to be a 5:45, you're a 5:45 guy. And it just lets me know where you want to be on the. So that alone kind of sets the standard and the culture of, I mean, if you want to sit third string, fourth string, work third string, fourth string effort.
Yeah.
And the guys in the program help along the way of that because they're the most important people. Like we can say that we don't play, we just help organize and delegate, but the players are the ones who really make everything work. And so in recruiting, you got to be able to find guys that are going to instill everything you say and then reciprocate it to their teammates.
And that's a good point about the fact that you're recruiting. You're probably recruiting guys that aren't 9-mile guys. You're trying to find out those guys that either from their high school coach, select coach, from their family, from what you can see from them when you communicate with them, that they've got those intangibles that I'm looking for. They're going to do their very, very best no matter what. I think what you just talked about is very useful for high school coaches that can't choose the players that they have, that whoever shows up in August, that's who we're rolling with.
Right.
But helping them, I think one of the biggest challenges, and you nailed it, Coach, is helping them to make the choice themselves, to be great, to have courage, and to make mistakes and to push themselves to that limit. It's easy, the path of do this or you're out, do this or there's more pain, do this or I'll never play you. Like, you'll get some results that way, but there's going to come a point where it doesn't matter to them anymore. Right. And so I love that idea. And I'm trying to think of other ways besides just running on the track or the mile that we can try to get them to make the choice to train harder, to go faster.
At the end of the day, it's a mentality, right? I mean, and so with today's day and age of mental health and the things, and it's granted, I tell our guys all the time and recruits, like, they're growing up in an era of stress by the age of 14.
Yeah.
Because this thing right here causes, you see social media and kid XYZ that you grew up playing with, now all of a sudden has 4 or 5 videos and it has a bunch of coaches messaging him and, pictures flying around here, and you start looking around and going, man, when did I get left in the dust? But in reality is all that just maybe pictures and videos and posts, it may mean nothing.
Yeah.
But to the kid that's looking at it from the other side, it becomes a more, man, am I going to make it? Am I going to do this? And so in the era that we're in today of mentality, it kind of becomes well, here's your choices. You choose which one you want, and you help them pick this one, and you kind of pull this one away little by little. But it makes them feel like, oh, I chose this, I can do this. Versus, here, man, this is what you have to do, or you don't make it.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's crazy. I mean, like I said, I remember when it was, here, you either take this or you don't make it. But in today's day, they have to be included in the process mentally.
I think it ultimately makes us better coaches. I'm not saying that the coaches that I had or the ones in the 80s and 90s, obviously John Wooden, I think, was doing this. Like, I think he was doing this back in the day. He was probably one of the first coaches that he wasn't a yeller. He did have high standards that he held them to, but I think he in a calm way just helped them to choose the right direction. I think he cared about relationships, and I don't think it was just his way or the highway mentality. But somewhere along the ways, maybe whoever the best coaches of the time were, it became pretty popular to, you're just going to do this because of fear, and they coach that way. And I think it's a positive direction that it's going. And you're right on the money. That phone really has changed things. Do you feel you have to be even more intentional with actually helping them to manage what they see, how they take that information, and how that should translate into their actions?
I don't know if you can ever actually manage it, just because, I mean, there's so much infinite information, and it is a requirement, to get to this point. And then once you're here, it is a requirement to just, maintain who you are. And it's kind of part of which one do you choose to be? Are you going to be humble and hungry, or are you going to kind of just be humiliated and feel inferior? But I think it's as much an asset as it is as a con. You look at, I have a newborn 5-month-old.
Nice,
so
congrats.
Thank you. She helped me stay up and watch FIBA a lot of the nights, because it would be a lot of feeds at the end of the first game and the start of the second one. And so watching European coaches and how they hold each other accountable and standards, that was as much refreshing to watch as it was the actions in the sport, because these are the best of the world.
Yeah.
But I'm watching the best of the world represent their countries, 35, 36. Europeans play late in their days. I mean, Rudy Fernandez is almost 40, still playing for Spain. But watching them look at their coach, focused, this is what's going on, getting ripped as a 38-year-old, Schroeder and their coach and the coach get into it one time out, telling him to sit down and yelling at him. If that happened in the NBA, he'd probably gotten fired.
Yeah.
But at the end, Germany wins it, and him and Schroeder are hugging at half court like nothing ever happened. So it's the toughness of look, I can still coach you because I know that you're bought into the scenario. And part of the culture is that you've got to be able to see the kid. If the kid is never bought in, if you're never bought in, then no matter how many times you sit in front of them and say, hey, man, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to try this, it'll never work. So the relationship of your culture has got to be that this is the way we're going, this is the way we're doing it, and the process to get there leads to that hug at the end, that I think is the most important part of it all.
The Jamodi Podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
I love to hear this from you as a college coach. What's one rule change you'd like to see, and why?
Well, this one is more Division II oriented than it is basketball oriented.
Okay.
So Division II, we have regionals. So 2 conferences, sometimes 3, make up 1 region. And so in order to make the regional tournament, you got to finish in the top 8 of your region, which is, 2 conferences put together. Well, we have, in my opinion, the 16 teams in our conference. The RMAC, which is the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference, I think has 15 teams in their conference. And I'd be willing to put our conference against anybody in the country, but you're limited to how many teams can get in. So 2 teams get automatic qualifiers, 1 from the Lone Star, 1 from the RMAC.
Yeah.
And then you got 6 teams left, to where there could easily be 13 teams that should be able to make it across. And I'm sure it's across the board the same thing at other conference and other regions. But I wish D2 would go a little bit more regional in the sense of not keep us in conference play, but just, if there's a South, the Southwest area has 8 or 16 good teams, take 16 good teams from there, take 16 good teams from California, and the surrounding states and make it a little bit more Division I oriented.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, is just kind of like what D1 does. And I actually had a high school coach talk about the Texas state playoffs, and instead of having it district based, where this district lines up against this district, and then these, because sometimes the best teams are meeting real early in it, and instead go to more of like a 1 through however many, based on record, strength of schedule, maybe using something like max preps or TABC even to help with that. But I would imagine that would be good for you guys as well.
I think it would help build Division II.
Yeah.
I think it would help the competition at the end, because, I mean, if you think about it, we play our gauntlet of a regular season, we play the conference tournament, and then you may go to the national tournament and play 3 more conference opponents, which 9 times out of 10 is what happens. West Texas hosted this season, and West Texas played us in the first round, Angelo in the second round, and then they played Black Hills at the end. Well, by the time West Texas gets to Black Hills, I mean, Black Hills won in a fair, even matchup, but they'd already played 22 LSC teams.
Yeah.
And so it just becomes, it takes away the fun. Man, I'm going to the national tournament, but I'm playing a team for the 4th time.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I'd love to see somebody new. Oh, these guys again. That's tough.
But to keep it basketball related, I'm always curious why we're the only level of basketball that plays halves. Every other, pro 4 quarters, high school 4 quarters, women's 4 quarters, the college men are the only ones who play 2 halves. And so I'd be curious what would happen if we went to quarters, what college basketball would look like.
What do you think's holding them back from doing that?
I don't know. I mean, they always say it's scoring, but I don't know what would be the pro and the con. I don't know enough information, but
the one thing I heard was it was a money thing, which you kind of guess it would probably go back to money in some way. But apparently it would eliminate either 1 or 2 media timeouts somehow with the way it works. And you might think, well, each game, 1 timeout, that's not a big deal. Well, you start to do the compound effect over all of the games, all of the TV deals, all that stuff. And you can see that would be a pretty big number, a pretty big chunk.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But
I guess it would, because instead of taking, well, you'd have your mid-first, end of first, mid-second, end of second, halftime. So it's the same as the 16, 12, 8, and 4.
That's just what somebody kind of like in the know said or talked about, but I've never really heard a good reason, not to have it be more of a universal game, which goes to where I feel like is in high school shot clock. Playing 26 states now have one. 24 are still holding out. And unfortunately, Texas, where there's really good basketball, we're still holding out.
Yeah, I don't, as a recruiter, I don't enjoy the 16 to 12 playoff game where you really want to see guys go after it, and you pay your $2 of popcorn to sit there and watch a guy hold the ball.
That's right. It's I think some coaches might be terrified to just lose that control. Like, because at least, like, if I have to, we can do this. Well, if that's taken away, then, man, guys got to play. Yeah.
My last game as a high school player, he's a Hall of Fame coach in El Paso. His name's Coach Mike Brooks from America's High School, and they always make a good run. And we're down 12 to start the 4th quarter, and it was the tale of speed versus size. And they have a bunch of little, flying guards running around. And, well, to start the 4th quarter, they just go 4 corners. And it's just drive, kick, drive. I mean, and you can't keep in front of them.
Yeah.
So we had to just, basically just go into an all-out blitz to try to get out of it. But, scenarios like that to where it can kind of, it definitely changes the game in the aspect. A 12-point lead in our level with 4 minutes to go is an eternity. A 12-point lead in high school, good luck.
Yeah. That's a good point. I think so many times what happens in the NBA or overseas now, the world's game, trickles down to college, and what's happening there trickles down to high school level. Where do you see the game moving in the next 10 years?
You know, NIL is playing a huge deal in the matter right now. And I think, in my opinion, this is just me, I
Sure.
think it needs to move to a point where we match the international culture of, let's just say, Team Barcelona in Spain has a Barcelona 17, a 14, and a 10. And I think if we did that here, I still think college basketball would have success, because a lot of the kids and parents who want to see their sons grow into professional athletes would have a general idea by the time they're 14, 15.
Yeah.
To where, let's just say the San Antonio Spurs, because they're the closest team to us. Let's say the Spurs have a developmental program. And so you're in the Spurs organization from 10 years old. You still go to school, and you still have the academics, and they have to be accredited, through the governing body to be able to still. So in case it doesn't work out by the time you're 17, the Spurs look at you and go, "Hey, I'm sorry, you're just not going to make it through." At that point, you can choose. Okay, well, do I go the college route and try to go college and work my way that way? Or do I say, you know what, I'm just going to go, I've been playing pro for so long, I'm going to keep going. And I think that would cancel out everything of the trouble that we have today in today's world. And I still think you can have the AU, and I still think you can have the college ball. A lot of there's a lot of good people in AU.
Sure.
And I think it kind of gets drowned out to the people who are kind of in it for the other reasons.
Yeah.
And, the money hungry and the kid driven, let me help you, kind of get thrown into the same pile. And there's a huge difference between the two. But if you did that to where now the handlers and the one guy who just wants to get a hold of this kid and move him, that would take all that out, because now Team USA and the NBA are dealing with it. And it becomes yes in, no out, yes in, no out. Next question. And I think that would just help solve all the problems.
It's definitely an interesting thought. I got to play in Iceland for 1 year, and I saw that model. The Njarðvík pro team had a junior team and all the way down to 10-year-olds almost, and
Right.
on both sides. And we'd be training in the same gym, or at least our practices would be staggered. All those kids came to our games, but then the school portion of it was literally just school. So I did see how much fun that could be, almost to be, city based, but then our population here, how big cities or towns are, and then how big high school sports are, figuring out how to integrate like somebody like me, or what we do with the would I become a Spur or a Dallas Maverick employee at that point, with the basketball team, or just teach, but do that separate. I do think, to your point too, about there are good select AAU coaches, no doubt. And but the few that aren't in it for the right reasons, that's what gets focused on. But that's the same with everything. I think there's good high school coaches, but there's a few that, it's about them, and they'll do anything they can to bring kids in, and everybody focuses on that. I feel that in the private school world all the time. I say, yeah, I'm at a small private school, and you just kind of see oh, you're one of those. Like, well, no, I'm not. Come to my gym. I'll show you. But yeah, the interesting ideas there, man.
And to add to it, I'm a huge soccer fan. I was actually a soccer fan before at age 14, I had to pick playing high school soccer or high school basketball. And I give myself credit. No one will ever believe me. But at 14, I said, basketball will probably take me further. I'll go basketball. And it worked out. But if you study it, U.S. Soccer and the MLS 6 years ago created that model.
Oh, wow.
And so U.S. Soccer, if you study it from 2023? So if you study from the 2014 World Cup on, USA Soccer didn't make the World Cup in 2018. And so the process of it leading into that shows you that the model actually works. And I think U.S. Soccer, in my opinion, is probably the best it's ever been right now.
Hmm. I did go.
And that's the backbone of the kids who
Yeah.
have gone through and are now at the highest point.
Yeah, the model does exist. There'd be a lot of, golly, then you'd have to bring in UIL and schools and stuff. But I don't know. I don't know how much they've had to deal with the soccer side, because I know you're right. Like, there's a lot of times where we've had kids here. We had one that actually played for the FC Dallas, kind of those junior teams.
Right.
He's walking the hallways at Faith, not playing for our own soccer team.
Right.
So you still have the school sports. They might
Correct.
be watered down a little bit more, or won't be as, a leader the way, but it does. You're right. It's happening right now, that model.
And I think the realism of, am I going to make it? Am I not going to make it? How far off am I? Kind of settles into where, does it water it down a little bit? Yes, but it also gives you the people who want to be there. And
Yeah.
so, I still think you can find talented kids who, may not be the cream of the crop, but are still good enough to give it a good production.
And it would take a lot of pressure off of the high school coach. Right. Because I would imagine if you don't have those guys that are in your program that are pushing towards USA basketball, making one of those pro teams, and a lot of times, even I know in the soccer world, like the select soccer, going to college is way more about that than it is about school soccer. Okay. So it would take a little bit of that pressure off us, to where those that really just they love teaching the game and want kids to have, how about this, that the game becomes more about fun, right, instead of pressure and next steps and getting film and all that stuff. I don't know. There's a cool byproduct because of it.
I'm just trying to help find and stop seeing, I think the portal was created, and that's a whole different subject, but I think the portal was created for the kid who made the wrong decision. And back to the first thing we talked about, the relationship between him and the coach just didn't work.
Yeah.
And that's, it's part of life. It happens in marriage. It happens in, et cetera. So that, to me, is the original point. And two, whenever a coach gets another career, gets fired, and, that's when you went to play for it. In my opinion, that's what the portal was built for. So I'm trying to help avoid the portaling as it is now. And the biggest thing that drives me nuts, and I see it all the time at every level, the kid who just finished playing a game, his team won by a large margin, kid played well, and you see dad or coach or handler or somebody just holding him on the side. Man, that's not what we worked on. You didn't do any of this. You didn't score enough. You got to go do this. And in the back of my mind, I go, man, the kid just won by X amount of points. His team is celebrating. They're moving on to the championship or the next round of a state playoff game. Like, let him enjoy what he just did. And I think if they're put in a scenario like that, I think the G League Ignite has, or the G League, whatever the new organization, I think it has some potential to go to where we're talking about. The overtime elite is kind of trying to do that, but I just think there's a lot of gray area in that. So I think if NBA or Team USA gets a hold of it, it becomes a lot more clear. This is the foundation.
You brought up the portal word, so I'm gonna go into that a little bit. What are your thoughts? I kind of feel like I know the direction you might go on it, because you talked about its original intent, and which makes a lot of sense. But obviously, it's in a different place now. It's a different animal. But your thoughts on it, and then also I'll ask you this: how much are you looking at the portal versus the high school players right now? Because there's this idea or feeling that as a high school player, the odds of you getting looks or noticed are less now, because there's this other resource that's out there that coaches can pull from.
Right. I think, like I said, I think the portal does have its purpose. I think it's currently getting abused.
Yeah.
COVID definitely did not help the second part of the portal of what it is today, which we're 2 years away from resetting. because our COVID juniors, which are in their fourth year of college, have this year and next year. So I think once you hit that point, I think the portal will kind of ease out, right?
Yeah.
And the other part of it is you look at the numbers of this year. I think it was under 40% of kids who went into the portal found a new home. So I believe in Division I, the number was 1,800. And I think under 500 kids of 1,800 found new homes and found an opportunity to play again at any level.
You think at some point it'll become less of an appealing option when the success rate in it is so small. It's because now it's a gamble.
Right. And, there's the kid who gets in it for the right reason. And there's a kid who gets in it for the, I just want to test reason. And there's a kid who gets in it because he's already been promised an NIL deal somewhere else. And so, those numbers, if you look at the 500, whatever it was, you analyze that and say, okay, which one of the three were you? And say, oh, okay, so most of it is because of NIL.
Yeah.
So then the other kids have to look around and, it becomes a very important decision of, I got to pick the right spot. And so we were very fortunate to get 5 really good freshmen this recruiting season that are here today. And I think there are 5 freshmen that can really play and have an opportunity to make impacts through our program. May this year, may not be this year, but that's on them. As like I told you in the recruiting process, it's what you do when you get here to get an opportunity. But I think there's a lot of good freshmen that are getting, not the chance. And here's the other thing of it is, in the state of Texas, you have D3s, D2s, D1s, and then when you get to D1s, you have D1 low major, mid major, and high major. And now high major, you're about to have 4 of the top 5 conferences in the state of Texas. So Texas recruiting has just become a whole different monster for everybody. And then you have NIAs and JUCOs. And if you look at states like Kansas and let's just say another one, Colorado. So Colorado has Colorado State, Colorado Boulder, and I think I'm missing another one. But then it's nothing but D2s. And so kids from Colorado, when they get recruited by Colorado schools, are like, man, yes. And in Kansas, if you're not going to Wichita State, Kansas State, or Kansas, you're going to the MIAA. So those conferences always have kids that you look around and people go, man, why do they look so much different at D2? Why do their facilities look so much different at D2? Well, because D2 is their mid-major.
Yeah.
And in Texas, by the time you get through the Southland, the Sun Belt, the WAC, Conference USA, the Big 12, now the ACC and the SEC, I mean, we're the Big 10 away. We got the Mountain West too. I mean, by the time you get through it all, it becomes, and that's the part that, D2 gets looked at like that in Texas, to where they go, man, I guess I'll go D2. When in reality, you look at it and you go, man, I don't think you understand how hard this is.
Yeah, you're so lucky to you're right on the money. Sorry to cut you off, but I'm kind of passionate about this with my own players, with anybody that I see on Twitter or whatever. Like, if any level shows an interest in you, an appreciation for what you do, you have to count yourself as very fortunate. Right. I don't care what level, but you're right. People, and a lot of the times it's just like you said at the very beginning, who do they have the right people around them?
Right.
If they have the right people around them, teaching them what to look for.
And odds are, we as coaches always have to, that's part of recruiting, no matter what level where you are. I make that example about Kansas, but I guarantee you they have the same struggles where they'd rather go, across to Missouri St. Louis and play Division I at Missouri St. Louis instead of, but you find the kid that says, Coach, I'm hearing what you're saying. I believe you. I trust you. Let's go do this. And you look at the kid who goes, man, I'll keep you on the back burner. Fast forward 4 years, who had the better experience? And I guarantee you it's always the kid. And 9 times out of 10, this kid, in today's portaling, it's D2's turned into the new JUCO.
Portaling.
It's turned into the new JUCO, but you look at the kids who trust and look at it, I guarantee you sometimes they're the ones who end up going up instead of the kid who's just hunting, kind of what we're talking about coaches.
Yeah.
You find your spot, you get rewarded, you hunt for the next opportunity. Odds are you're either going to be at the same place or worse.
Yeah. Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here. You are in such a unique position where you're a head coach in your first year and you have a 5-month-old. That's a unique combination right there. So balancing coaching and family life is difficult for everybody. How are you doing it right now with both of those new starts happening at the same time?
Not to one up you, but I'll throw you one more. I got married in June, firstborn in March, and got promoted in April. So I'm hitting the trifecta.
There's a book that you need to write after this time has passed of how you did it, because I don't think many people will go through that.
I was talking to our baseball coach on Saturday at the football game, and he goes, "Man, how are you doing through all this?" And he was talking about being a head coach.
Yeah.
And I said, Coach, to be honest with you, I'll always wonder what type of head coach I would have been if it wasn't while handling and learning how to be a dad at the same time. Because the time management and the attention to detail here, and I got to be focused here. I think, not to say that I would have been worse, but I think it would have, the complacency, the human nature of, okay, well, I've got this figured out. I've got this. Well, the newborn kind of keeps me fresh on the other side to where I'm always I can't relax.
Yeah.
My wife, not to keep making the story more intense, is the head volleyball coach here. And so kids got 2 head coaches at the same time. So right now, wife is traveling, playing the games. So this weekend I got to experience my first weekend as and I'm not a single dad by any means, because her mother is here. My mother-in-law is here helping take care of us. And when she leaves, my mother, so
nice.
Family
support system. Yeah.
Right. But if it weren't for that, this weekend would have been really fun to handle 6:45 conditioning, which I almost missed Friday because the daughter would not go back to bed. And I didn't want to wake mother-in-law up to say, hey, I need your help. I got to go. But it's been fun, and it's been good balance to kind of figure out both at the same time, just because they kind of handle them. They're very similar. I've got to learn what, the timing of daughter. She's crying. What's she crying for? I got to figure it out. The same way this kid over here is not responding, I got to figure out what's wrong with him. Okay, let's get to the bottom. Let's talk. So it's been a blessing all around. Not for the faint at heart, I can say that.
Yeah.
But it's been really fun to be able to learn both at the same time.
I think the detail you added about your wife being a head coach really, in my opinion, makes it seem that much more possible for you to do everything you're doing, because she gets it.
Right.
Like, she'll understand the pull and the time and the commitment, because she's doing the same thing. I think that right there allows for you to even be on this call and to stay sane right now.
Right. No doubt. And she's been doing this for a long time. She'll be a future Hall of Famer here. And another reason why this job was so special is because she's been here 13 years.
So you met her there.
Coach. Right. So I met her here. She's from an hour and a half outside of El Paso, called Deming, New Mexico. I'm from El Paso. We both traveled all the way to Kingsville to find jobs and find each other here. We actually got married in El Paso in June last summer. So it was just small world. But me having the job here and accepting it here just made it a lot easier, because I can't imagine me accepting a job somewhere else and asking her, hey, I know you're, at the peak of your career, but would you be willing to move across the country for me to take another, so
Yeah.
like I said, Kingsville's very special to me.
How open are you with your players about the struggles? Take the example of the early morning workout where, guys, I haven't slept much. The little one kept me up. I'm glad I made it. But how honest are you with that struggle? Or do you do what I think a lot of coaches do, is I'm always going to have a great day no matter what's happening in my life in front of my players. I'm going to be Superman in a way.
The accountability piece is always high for us. And I always tell our guys, look, I know you're not going to have it every day. I'm not going to have it every day, but we have to communicate about it to make sure that we all understand where we are. It is my job to have it as much as I possibly can. And so my job is to not show the fatigue and the tired, but it is for me to elaborate. Hey, this is life. This is what's happened. This is what happens when you have a newborn. This is what I'm learning through the process. And so now I'm sharing it with you. So that way you're in the scenario, you've already heard it once. Oh, I remember coach talking about this, blah, blah, blah. And so it becomes a open-ended, coach, you got to call home from mom. This is what's going on. So if I look out of it, just okay. So that way I know when he's not going hard in warm-ups, it's not, oh, okay, this is the kind of practice we're going to have. It's going to be like, hey, man, come here. If you can't go today, that's fine. Sit here. Let's talk about it afterwards. Because 18 to 22 is different to head coach with wife and kid. I've, not to say that I've been through it all, but I've had enough experience to know how to handle scenarios versus them being so far away and learning and adapting. Sometimes it's better for them to just, man, let's sit down and talk this through instead of let's put you through a full hour and a half of constant bickering. And so honesty is very good. We have, the first 4 days in Division II, we can't do anything. And so we bring in mentors and people of the community and, hey, this is who I am. This is what I do here. If you ever need anything, let us know. And then every Wednesday before our conditioning, we sit down in a classroom and we discuss everything but basketball. And it just becomes let's become humans. Let's learn how to do this. As simple as today we're going to write an email, and let's structure an email. Today we're going to tie a tie. Let's learn, in case some of you may already know how to do it, but let's just do. So one day when you have an interview, you already have it's just little things like that help them be more than just basketball players. And I think that is so important.
I just want to celebrate you for taking those extra steps, because I feel pressure as a high school coach at a small 5A TAP school with 340 kids to win and to create a good program and all those things. The pressure that you go through, it's so far beyond. But for you to take time to teach kids how to tie a tie or to help those life skills that, I had my dad in the home with us through high school and in college. And that relationship, he didn't teach me those things, so right. It doesn't have to do with like just you have a dad at home or not. So a lot of these kids won't know some of these important things that'll to be a man, to go through an interview process, what it takes to actually be on a date and be successful in that date, like all those things. I think, I just want to celebrate you for taking the time to do that.
Well, I appreciate it. But I didn't learn it on my own. I had people helping me. And it was just my job to pass it on.
The speed round. A lot of your players and coaches and your wife, they know you already. But after the speed round, they're really going to know you.
I'm ready. Hold on. Let me sit up.
All right. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Pistachio almond.
Say it one more time.
Pistachio almond. Bluebell. Bluebell pistachio almond. I'm telling you, it'll change your life. I'm telling you. There's also there's a new one my wife found HEB sells it. I don't know if you have an HEB in your area.
Yeah.
It's a man. I forgot what it was called. It's like it's not a snickerdoodle, but it's oatmeal cookie ice cream. It's telling you, it's really good.
I wrote down the pistachio almond for you, man. I'll try it. It sounds. Get
the small one.
Yeah, it sounds like something I would not want, but yeah, I'll trust you. Greatest shooter of all time.
I gotta go with Reggie.
It's a good one.
I gotta go with Reggie.
The clutch factor too.
I grew up 2000s watching NBA, and the first final I remember is the Spurs and the Knicks. The second one was the run right after, where the Lakers started the three-peat, and it was against Reggie and Rick Smits and Antonio Davis, which is a UTEP alum. So
nice.
Watching them against the Lakers, and I was a big Shaq guy, but watching Reggie not win that, and just how hard he competed and played, and that to me, that's why Ray is really good, Steph's really good, but it's just the tough grit of Reggie is why I pick him.
Best basketball movie of all time.
If I don't say Glory Road, then the city of El Paso will hate me forever, man.
That's fair.
But I'm a Coach Carter guy too.
Oh yeah, both are great movies, and I don't really appreciate the basketball part in either movie. The lines and the drama, all those things make it so great. That's what made Hustle like a decent basketball movie, is they had basketball players in it. But anyway, yeah. Probably okay. Let me ask you this. I haven't asked anybody this. This is new. This is just you. Worst basketball movie of all time. What do you got?
Oh, I mean, does Air Bud count?
What is the Ernest one, where Ernest that he wears those shoes, and there's a lot of bad ones out there.
Haven't seen Space Jam 2. Haven't seen the new one, but
not nearly as good as one. Not nearly as good. I love LeBron. Stick to basketball. Like he made Jordan look like a great actor. That's what he did. Yeah. Texting or talking?
For the sake of my life, and it's easier to catch me in a text than it is in a call, I'll do texting.
That's fair. Okay. Well, I already know the answer. You want shot clock for high school?
100%.
Okay, yeah, but don't have to ask that. Favorite holiday?
Well, Christmas is the easy answer. That's only because my birthday's 4 days prior. So because growing up, it was a double whammy. I'm a 21st of December.
Coach,
not as much now. It's become a right. Barely. Now it's a Christmas, man. I forgot your birthday. Football's well.
Oh, I feel for you. The combo when you're younger.
My wife is on the 24th.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's literally only one day worse Christmas than Eve. That. Literally,
right? 100%. 100%.
You're up 3 on defense with 7 seconds left. Do you foul or no foul?
Never foul.
Never. So you play it out.
Play it out.
What's your thought with that?
Too many margins of error. If I've never been a fan of it. I just believe that if they're going to hit the shot, they're going to hit the shot. But now you're fouling, and you hope you don't foul while they're on the flight. You hope you don't miss the foul. Now you got people relaxed because they think, well, this guy's going to foul, and you may actually give up a worse shot. Then you got the rebound, because then you got to box out, and you got to go back, and you got to make just. I'd rather trust my defense, contest it, and if they make it, they make it. If not, we rebound and we move on.
I like that. Name a bucket list item you still need to do.
That's a hard question. I don't know. The thing about it is I'm not and my wife is not a big fan of me for this, is that I'm in the moment. I'm an in the moment guy. I'm not a, man, we need to do this, and
planning
this.
And yeah.
Right. And so if it involves the 23-24 season, I've got it all figured out. Past that point, I don't really know. So we'll for today's bucket list, we'll say winning the Lone Star Championship.
There it is. Last one, probably the most important in basketball. Who's the GOAT?
You like starting up fights, huh?
That's right.
The the easy answer is Michael. But in my opinion, if you look at accolades and you look at level of competition, what they had to go through, scenarios, my answer is Kobe.
Hmm.
And so, LeBron's got all the records. He played the longest. He should have all the records. LeBron played in a league that was not as physical because of rules, not because of players, but because of rules. He also played in a more open era of basketball. Michael played in the most physical, in my opinion, with the less talent. Kobe was in the middle and did it without, he won the first three with Shaq, and then he went through struggle and maintained his performance through probably the worst teams in Lakers history.
Yeah.
Then, was fortunate to get Powell. And then through drafting, got Andrew Bynum, Sasha Vujacic, and all the role players that they had. And he had to change his game to be something completely different, while still being the dominant one. And so, in my opinion, it's Kobe. And I grew up a Shaq fan, so there was an era there that I hated Kobe. But I just respected everything he did, and so my answer is Kobe.
You know what I love about that question is not to pick fights. That's not the purpose, but it's there are so many opinions on it. There's no right answer. But that's probably one of the best responses or ways to, what am I trying to say? Breakdowns, yeah. Explain. Golly, that's the word. That's scary. I'm looking for the word explain. That's one of the best explanations for an answer that I get, because I think most people only talk about like the guy that they watch the most in that important time in their lives. For me, it was I'm a 90s kid, like MJ. But then I knew about Magic and Bird, but I didn't never watch them live, and I didn't go through all that. And I didn't know Kareem and all the, Wilt and all the, I never saw them. So it's such a fascinating question that there's no answer to, which is frustrating. But your answer is probably one of the best as far as why Kobe, or really why any player. A lot of times I feel like there's no good reason except for I just like that guy more.
I mean, LeBron playing for 21 years, probably going to play for 22, speaks on itself.
Yeah.
I mean, the longevity that he was able to go. When I really want to stir things up, I say Shaq, and I just don't even reply why. I just move on.
I think Shaq's the most dominant player of all time.
Giannis is going to pass him.
Hmm.
I think Giannis, Jokic, and Doncic probably all have a chance to, Doncic being a guard, but I think those three Europeans probably have a chance to be in that same dominant category.
But just though Kobe and Jordan are similar. There's been great athletes like LeBron, not to his level, but like him and Magic, even sometimes I don't think it's a great comparison, but the passing and point guard-esque of him, I get that.
Right.
Shaq was just so there's nothing like him. His size, athleticism, passing, all those abilities in one. I think he's one of, or if not the greatest athlete of all time. And because again, Jordan was athletic, and there's a lot of pieces to athleticism, but was there ever anything else like Shaq? I don't think so.
No, and I say Giannis because Giannis can handle the basketball.
Well, he's super unique, but like McGrady, even Durant, he is more physical than them, but they were bigger guards that can do some similar things. But again, it's just the Shaq, he just transformed the game. He's on the floor. The game's different. Right. But there's types of him for sure, like Giannis and stuff. But anyway.
Well, now I'm going to do something nobody's ever done on this show, and I'm going to ask you, which player
Ooh.
pending injury would you have wished had a longer career?
I would have loved to see Jordan continue because he ended at his prime. And I think what's interesting, people need to go watch. There's one or two YouTube videos on there about the Wizards seasons, and I wish they would do a documentary on that. They've done The Last Dance, great. Let's do a deep dive into how amazing he was as a 40-year-old away from the game. Still averaged like 22 points a game. Played in one season, he played like every game. The second season or so, or one of those, he got hurt and his knees started bothering him. But you still saw like this brilliance in him. But there were the baseball years, right? So we lost 2 years there. 2 years that later, I mean, he was already at the top of the charts in so many categories. But I think it ended up being a 13-year career or something like that. Like that's not that. I mean, LeBron has 9 more years on him.
Right.
But his numbers aren't 9 more years ahead.
Great.
So like I think I would love to see Jordan play a LeBron-esque type of career and Jordan make it into the 2000s where the rules were better. I think he could have played even longer. Man, that good question.
Yeah. Grant Hill is the name that people always bring up.
Okay. You're right, because he was robbed almost of like what he could have been. Yeah, Penny is another one.
Penny's another one. Brandon Roy's
a good one. Yeah, he's a good one. Yeah, that's good. I think I might add that too to the list. Hey man, this was so enjoyable. I love it when I don't really have much relationship with the coach, but there's something about this profession. Even though you're at a much higher level than me, there's a camaraderie that comes with it, and just I don't know, an appreciation. So I really enjoyed learning more about you, the story of how you got to where you are. Amazing story with your wife, and just excited to see the great things that you do there. Just really appreciate your time.
No, like I told you when we started, man, I see the names that you have on the show, and I see the conversations you had, and I said, man, are you sure? And, I had the cancellation that first time. And so I thought, man, I hope I didn't ruin my chance, but your patience with me and you sticking with me just means the world to me. And I don't think, I know this for a fact because I've seen it all throughout working camps. To me, the only difference between a college coach and a high school coach is the college coach had a way to get in the door at one point.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot better high school coaches than I'll probably ever be. I just had the time and I was young to be able to start in a certain position, and I think that's the biggest difference between people. But I don't think level makes the coach, in my opinion.
I appreciate your humility there. And I agree with you too. I don't care that's what I love about doing this. In a little over 2 years, obviously some of the D1 guys, it's fun. Like it's fun to have those talks for sure. Guys that I watch on TV or Coach Drew that I have like a relationship with, that was just special. But man, the smaller colleges and the high school coaches, sometimes the depth that they go into, it's just at another level. There's a lot more similarities with struggles. Sometimes I kind of chuckle at TBC when a coach is setting up a drill for us, but he's talking about, you can have a manager there, you can have a manager there, a couple assistant coaches here. Make sure you got this out. I'm like, oh, okay, it's just me. So, but my point is, I think there are great coaches, not just in the state of Texas, but I've been able to branch out a little bit. And I feel like what is it Ted Lasso said to the lady that runs the club, her ex, he's like, I just don't think you're very curious. I think if you're curious, then you can learn something from everybody that you talk to. And that's held true over with like 180 recordings at this point. So it's been pretty fun.
Man, what a reference right there you just made.
The good one.
Great. If you're watching this, if you made it this far through me and you haven't watched Ted Lasso,
especially season 1.
Just watch, and you can just YouTube Ted Lasso quotes, and
Yeah.
there's so much value in everything he talks when it's actually coaching time. He
Yeah.
gives such great insight.
I would have loved to have found out where they got those ideas, like who or what was the inspiration behind it. Because to me, like, if those writers were just coming up with that stuff on their own,
Right.
that's pretty impressive, which is possible, but like he's right in line with, I feel like, where coaching is going.
100%.
You know, and creating a safe environment where players can be themselves, make mistakes, experiment, love each other, believe, have a goldfish mentality. Like, that's right in line with. So I don't know. Did they just read a lot of John Gordon books? You know, did they do like, I'd love to know what their influences were.
Another influence for the show was he did a Saturday Night Live skit, being the football coach, trying to, be, so the show was written and pitched 5 years ago.
Okay.
From that.
Oh.
And he got denied. And then he tried again, and somebody finally picked it up, and obviously it worked out.
Yeah.
But the core of the show was off of a Saturday Night Live skit, and look where it turned out.
I keep learning new things from you, man. But Coach, really appreciate your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi Podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.